Welcome back. We've been talking about the Hope Florida scandal and why the state's attorney general won't say if he is trying to block the release of the grand jury report on Hope Florida. I invited Uthmeier to come on the show, but he didn't respond. I did, however, talk to his opponent in this year's election, former Democratic State Senator José Javier Rodriguez.
First of all, as Attorney General, I would focus on tackling costs and tackling corruption. This Attorney General is focused on being part of the corruption and part of the cover-up. This is part, of course, of the Hope Florida scandal, which is the biggest scandal in the DeSantis administration, where it looks like they took $10 million out of the Medicaid program and used it for campaigns. And it's under criminal investigation, this scheme. It runs right through James Uthmeier, my opponent, who was the chief of staff for the governor at the time and chaired the political committees. Up until now, he hadn't confirmed that essentially he was part of that grand jury process. The presentment is essentially an indication, or it seems pretty clear that there's a presentment. It's an indication that the grand jury found serious wrongdoing.
Well, let's be clear. He says that he did nothing wrong, and there's no indication that the grand jury indicted anyone. It appears that what their work has culminated in is a report, as you described it, a presentment that might have a series of recommendations as well as lay out some of the concerns that were raised by the mishandling or how that $10 million settlement from Medicaid was diverted into political action committees controlled by the governor and his then chief of staff, James Uthmeier. But it's not clear that anyone has been indicted. And again, to be clear, James Uthmeier has denied that he's done anything wrong and has said that he has not been indicted in the case. I think it's more revelatory, though, that whatever information the grand jury found out, whether it's good, bad, or otherwise, if it certainly exonerates the attorney general, I would imagine he would want that out. And the fact that he doesn't seem to want this material out does raise some concerns.
Well, it raises serious concerns. No matter what the decision is here, to have the chief legal officer of the state engaged in this kind of sweeping, fraudulent criminal activity is a serious issue. And to have the chief legal officer of the state refuse to answer questions about this, I think he said, "Shame on you" to a reporter when asked about it. And the most he can say is that he is not currently under indictment. I mean, that's not the kind of thing you want to hear from the chief legal officer. What you want to hear, what you'll hear from me, is we're going after insurance companies. We're going after the utilities. We're making your life better. We're keeping your kids safe. Instead, all you hear from this attorney general are one scandal after the next, or one political antic trying to get attention in D.C. and not focusing on the issues that matter to us.
I want to raise one of those in a second, but first, you mentioned utilities, and also in the news this week is the Public Service Commission, the Florida that oversees Florida Power and Light, said that they will not reconsider their decision to move forward with what is one of the largest rate increases in Florida history, if not the history of the United States. What's your reaction to that?
My reaction is more than disappointment. It is outrageous that at the executive level, we have nobody standing up for us when it comes to the biggest and most powerful interests in Tallahassee. FPL came in for the biggest rate increase, biggest guaranteed profit of any investor-owned utility in the history of the country, not just Florida. And our attorney general was nowhere to be found other than just parroting their talking points, apparently trying to help them out. The FPL ratepayers are going to be saddled, if this is finally approved, with $7 billion of rate increases. We used to have attorneys general who would stand up and fight for us when we're getting screwed. We do not have that. We have the opposite. I will absolutely stand up to them. I've done that. My entire career has been about standing up for the little guy against powerful institutions.
Well, give me an idea. What realistically could you do if you were elected attorney general? What could you do to try to rein in what Florida Power and Light seems to be able to get away with?
Thank you for that question. intervene, investigate, bring legal actions. I would point folks to Michigan, for example, where the Attorney General in Michigan has sued utilities to recover millions for constituents and gotten active in rate cases just like this one and saved constituents millions in rate increases. If you all remember, Charlie Crist, when he was Attorney General, at least would intervene on behalf of the people, because the job is to be the people's lawyer. That's what I'm running to serve as, the people's lawyer, to fight for them. Here we have an Attorney General who will go nowhere near the Public Service Commission, other than apparently, I guess, to collect checks from the big utilities. And it's not just FPL. All the other utilities are lining up for giant rate increases, and they're looking at the guaranteed profits FPL's allowed to get, and they're going to be coming in for bigger guaranteed profits. Obviously, at a time when there's so much uncertainty and so much economic pain, all over the state, it just seems so obscene, especially. And we really need somebody in Tallahassee advocating for this. This is what I've done my whole career. It's what I'll do as Attorney General.
I know that since you entered the race, I think you've raised about $1 million for your Attorney General campaign. Honestly, in a state like Florida, that's not enough. That's not a lot.
This is not my first competitive election. Every time, the way that I serve, the way that I run is talking to all voters about issues that impact them. As Attorney General, I'll focus on rooting out crime, costs, and corruption. That's not a partisan agenda. You'll see in my career, I've always focused on issues that improve people's lives, not concerned about partisan issues. And it's true. My entire career has been about fighting the biggest, most powerful interests in Tallahassee. And that's what we need from an Attorney General. It's no surprise my opponent, who serves them, has more money. That is true. I have never been outworked, but I've always been outspent. That is what I expect to happen in this race. The big interests in Tallahassee, they know what they're going to get with me, and they will spend a lot to try to prevent me. It hasn't worked in the past when it's been just about convincing voters at the ballot box, and I'm convinced that we'll prevail here because people see that we need relief. And we need an Attorney General who's fighting for us.
Well, I mean, it did work in one regard. I mean, Florida Power and Light ran a campaign against you when you were running for re-election in the state Senate, putting in shadow candidates that ended up drawing voters away from you to deceive voters. So, I mean, your history with Florida Power and Light, tangling with them, I would say right now they're 1-0 against you. Florida Power and Light were able to take you out. What's going to be different this time?
Well, yeah, and what you're referencing, your viewers might remember the Republicans ran a ghost candidate in 2020. It turned out funded by FPL because they wanted to take me out. And out of 250,000 votes, I lost by less than 40. And the important point of the story is not, the victims were the voters, but I was the target of that. And it's because nobody else in Tallahassee was standing up for the forced customers of our electric utilities more than I was, and they wanted to take me out. And the same is true for a number of other interest groups, right? The big polluters, folks that want to run our rates up on a bunch of things, and no one stands up to them in Tallahassee. When I did, they were very upset. So it's not personal for me. For me, it's advocating for those I serve. But it was personal for FPL, and I'm sure it's personal for a lot of these other big special interests that are trying to screw us. So again, I don't doubt that my opponent will have more money, but that's not what wins this race.
You talked earlier about how the current Attorney General seems to try to find issues that get him certain levels of press, and I couldn't help but think when he inserted himself by announcing that the state of Florida would potentially sue or raise objections to the NFL's use of the Rooney Rule. And for those of you who don't know, the Rooney Rule simply says that for a team to hire either the head coach or the general manager, that they should include that there should be some minorities who are interviewed. It doesn't guarantee that anyone gets a job, but merely that the pool of candidates who are interviewed for those top positions include some minorities.
Well, my reaction, there are two things. Number one, he's just simply wrong. And, the NFL has already said, go pound sand. The NFL put this rule in there, in an effort to root out issues that they still very much have. And, essentially what Uthmeier seems to be concerned about is that too many minorities are getting interviewed for senior positions at teams. It's very perplexing. He doesn't seem to understand the law. He's not going to win this one. He's already losing it. And he's trying to spin this into something that it is not. But the other issue with this is that what a waste of taxpayer dollars, right? I mean, this is something he's doing for consumption in Washington, D.C. He is not doing this to improve our lives. This is not going to keep us safer. This is not going to reduce our costs. And this does nothing about the rampant corruption here in Florida.
As I said before, Attorney General Uthmeier has so far ignored our request for an interview. But if he ever changes his mind, he is always welcome to come on the show.